person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed minor variance respecting 6201 Fairview Road, Municipality of Central Elgin. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? What method of notice and when was notice given to the public for this meeting?
Mayor Sloan, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 60 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on February the 15th, 2023. Notice was posted to the property, notice was posted to the municipal website, and notice was displayed in the weekly CE Buzz advertisements.
Have you received any written submissions on the proposal?
No correspondence has been received, Mr. Chair.
Before opening from questions to the public, I ask they be respectful. Those choosing to be disrespectful will be removed from the meeting. If you're attending in person, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you have to be called into the meeting on a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be taken in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record.
Mayor Sloan, at this time, I apologize. We've indicated you're introducing the planner, Mr. McClure. It's actually the applicant that we need to introduce if they're in attendance or if they're on Zoom.
No problem.
To explain their application. Thank you. My apologies.
No problem. Mr. McClure. Sorry, the applicant. Pardon me. Apologies, new to the. Applicant on Zoom. Can anyone tell me if the applicant is on Zoom? Okay. And we don't have any written submissions. Does any member of council have any questions? Does any member of the public have any further questions? Everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. Is the committee prepared to make a decision or reserve its decision? Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? I'm going to hear again here. Sorry, Diane, what did I do wrong this time?
No, just procedurally on this item, there's an actual decision that I would circulate to the members of council in attendance if you're in favor of granting this application.
Mr. McClure is stating to grant this, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so what's before the committee right now is the expansion of a legal non-compliant garage. So in order to permit that, there's certain variances that are required to permit the expansion. So that's what you would be granting through this application.
Okay.
So in staff's position, we're in support of the minor variance.
Favor in granting? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Those wanting to be notified of the committee's decision or any application should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralelgin.org, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and provide their name and address. Those who don't have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call Diane Wilson at 519-631-4860, extension 286, and provide the same information. Public meeting is now adjourned. This is a public meeting is required by the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed minor variance respecting 192 Prospect Street, municipality of Central Elgin. Does any member of council have disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Seeing none, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Mayor Sloan, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 60 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on February the 15th, 2023. Notice was posted to the property. Notice was posted to the municipal website, and notice was displayed in the weekly CE Buzz advertisements.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Is the applicant here and do they wish to present the proposed minor variance? If you'd like to come forward and state your name, please.
My name is Scott Carey, and this is my partner, Ruth McLean. Ruth owns the property at 192 Prospect Street. Hi, how are you? You want us to make a quick presentation on what we're planning?
It's up to you, folks. If you wouldn't mind, maybe we could get an understanding of it. Thank you.
Sure. So it's approximately 100-year-old cottage that we're looking to redevelop. It's an uninsulated cottage that's pretty much on stilts. We are looking to make it a full year-round home using Heco pylons to make sure we don't disturb the hill and have very minimal impact on the lands around it. We are looking to increase the square footage on the main floor, which we would consider the upper floor, by about 80 square feet. And that is simply to square up the existing floor space. The existing cottage has at the back is 3 feet wider than it is at the front. So we're just looking to square it up. We'll try to get a little more square footage under the bottom so we can have our furnace room in an enclosed heated space as opposed to an unheated crawl space like it is right now.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson, have we received any written submissions on the proposal?
Mayor Sloan, no correspondence has been received.
For opening the meeting to questions for public, I ask that all participants be respectful. If you're attending in person, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record before asking your question. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you're phoning in using a telephone, press *9. Is Ms. Cardozo, is there anyone attending via Zoom or telephone that wishes to speak, please?
Mayor Sloan, there are none.
Thank you. Does any member of council have any questions for the applicant? Does any member of public, I don't think they have any further. Oh, does any member of the public have any further questions? Everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. Is the committee prepared to make a decision or reserve its decision? Seeing the committee is prepared to make a decision, I'd like to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Those wanting to be notified of the committee's decision on any application should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralelgin.org, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and provide their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call Diane Wilson at 6519-631-4860, extension 286, and provide the same information. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. This is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment respecting 4980 Sunset Road, municipality of Central Elgin. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? What method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Mayor Sloan, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 120 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on January the 28th, 2023. Notice was posted to the property, notice was posted to the municipal website, and notice was displayed in the weekly CE Buzz advertisements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. McClure is our planner, and I am going to introduce him to present the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sloan. As has been indicated, this is a public meeting to present draft official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for 4980 Sunset Drive. Working here. Oh, there we go. As can be seen on the screen, location and the limits of the subject lands are shown to be south of Sunset Drive, north of East Road, and then just further to the east is the location of the fire hall. If we go to the, oh, there we go. So the change for the draft official plan amendment is to change existing commercial industrial designation to the change existing commercial industrial land use designation and natural heritage designation to a site specific commercial industrial designation on those lands. Right now, the majority of the lands, other than like you can see on the screen that where the old Green Roof restaurant is designated for natural heritage use, whereas the Green Roof Inn currently has a commercial industrial use. So as part of the amendment to facilitate the proposed commercial development on the property, the amendment is required to change the land use designation. So part one of that amendment introduces Schedule I to this area shown in heavy solid lines and defines the area shown on that schedule, Schedule G being Port Stanley's land use plan, and redesignates it to the office professional designation. So when you look at the lands on the screen, as you can see, it's showing that kind of the inset on the left-hand side is the kind of a slight blow up from where it is on the Schedule G, which shows the area now being changed to that exception to the office commercial industrial designation in the official plan. Of note in there, the built area limits is a pink line that goes around it, has also been expanded as part of the sub-watershed study that was required as part of the official plan update process to allow for development of these lands. So item 2 of the amendment then introduces a new section to the official plan, being the site-specific exception to the office, the office professional, the commercial industrial. That should read commercial industrial on there. So the exception is that 4.4.1.1 is going to be bringing forward a new exception that allows for permitted gross leasable floor area of 125 square meters for a range of permitted uses. Right now, it's limited to commercial industrial uses within the commercial designation. This expands and allows for a little bit more flexibility within that on those lands to deal with the proposed development. This would be in keeping with the commercial industrial uses that are to the west, with the gas station and the other kind of mechanic shop that's there as well. So it kind of encompasses all those uses. This then brings us to the zoning bylaw amendment. So what it's going to do is this area of Port Stanley has been subject to a number of site-specific amendments. So the first part of the amendment is actually repealing a number of those amendments to revert it back to the underlying OS2 zone that was applied to the lands, and then applying a site-specific business 3 zone to permit the development of the commercial plaza and the 4 standalone buildings that are proposed for this development. So what's shown on the screen is the draft concept plan that was proposed as part of the application process. So just do note the I guess kind of the subheader there that the design and is in process of review and revision. I know the applicant is here to explain a little bit more about that, but ultimately the end result will still respect the zoning that's being applied for and the official plan amendment that's being applied for today. So this brings us to the amendment itself. So part one of the amendment is repealing a site-specific amendment that was placed on the property to the Central Elgin bylaw a number of years ago, repealing then the bylaw number 112 to the municipality of Central Elgin. Again, I think this dates back to the late 90s, and then the early 90s is then when you're dealing with a bylaw that was site-specific to this property again in the township of Yarmouth. Then through that, we're going to be introducing a new section or schedule to the bylaw. So being Schedule A, being map part 9 AP, and then designating the area for the property in on Schedule A in heavy solid lines and designating it that B3-31 zone. So it's going to be seen on the screen here, that area of the proposed development designated at B3-31. New section to the business 3 zone of the Yarmouth bylaw, because this is actually within the area outside of Port Stanley from a bylaw perspective. Defining the area as B3-31 on that zoning map part 9 AP provides that the only permitted uses or the list of permitted uses in that zone. So it does allow for a range of commercial, automotive uses, et cetera, that would be permitted in that commercial office, commercial industrial designation. Provides that the minimum lot depth is 27 meters, front yard for buildings is 7 meters, side yards 1 meter, rear yard 1 meter, off-street parking requirements 98 parking spaces, minimum gross leasable floor area 125 square meters per single use. Again, this is getting at what the applicant had provided through their planning justification that to ensure that these are larger type uses to ensure that not impact the commercial core of Port Stanley, and then providing site specific exceptions to the business 3 zone to allow for the changes that have been requested. And then Schedule B to this amendment has been included to include all of the amendments that have been made to date through that schedule to the bylaw, including in this amendment, as can be seen on the screen here, again with the upper center portion designated that B3-31. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McClure. Ms. Wilson, have you received any written submissions on the proposal?
Mayor Sloan, correspondence has been received from the following. Nicole Christie, 420 Breakwater Boulevard, recommends to council that the development also include housing units and underground parking with electric vehicle charging stations. Correspondence from the Port Stanley Village Association voicing concern with lack of market impact study and visual impact of the development. They urge a site-specific policy of a high standard of building and landscape design, which takes into account the character of the village and location of the proposed development. They also urge a holding symbol to any zoning council adopts to then be removed once satisfied with the building and landscape design. Correspondence has been received from Jody Major, 5043 Sunset Road, expressing concerns related to the ecological impact of the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments, given the property's proximity to wetlands, the traffic impacts of the proposed development, and the potential for noise and light disruptions. All correspondence has been circulated to members of council and staff.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. I'm going to ask if there's firstly, if there's anyone in the gallery that wishes to speak on this. Please. If you could come forward and state your name, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Julian Novick. I handle land development at Wasdell. We're the applicant for this application. As you can see on screen here, this is a project we're very excited to work on. Mr. McClure gave a detailed presentation of some of the technical details of it. And I know some of the concerns we've heard from the public related to the building designs. We just wanted to bring this to your attention today and kind of go over this at a high level. When we started this process, We had sort of committed to staff and council at that time that we were going to make this a gateway feature coming into Port Stanley. It wasn't going to be a cookie cutter commercial site. We were going to do something that was suited to the village, Port Stanley. And the plan you see before you today, we believe achieves that. We've taken coastal architectural features, board siding, different colors, Bermuda shutters, decorative corbels, and stonework that you normally wouldn't see of a sort of commercial size site of this type. And we've applied it here in order to achieve that. As well, the buildings are a much smaller form than you would see in big box commercial. The buildings actually range from about 3,000 to 5,000 square feet each. Although it might be big in terms of a house, it's actually quite a small commercial building that we think fits really well with the character of the village. So I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed on that and share those details. And we thank you for your time and consideration, and we're available to answer any questions you or the public may have.
I have a question. I'm just going to quickly ask. The building has a drive-through that's suggested. Is that correct?
There's one of the 4 buildings we've proposed to drive through, correct?
Okay. That's not the building that you showed, though.
That is the largest building at the east, or I guess the north end of the site. That was the one on screen. The visual details of all the buildings will be very similar.
Okay. Now, is there anyone that's listening online? Ms. Cardozo, is there anyone attending via Zoom or on telephone that wishes to speak?
Mayor Sloan, there are none.
Thank you. Council, does any member of the council have any questions? Thank you, Julian.
Thank you.
Everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw on the proposed amendment should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralelgin.org, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on. They can also call Diane Wilson at 519-631-4860, extension 286, and provide the same information. This public meeting is now concluded. Any amendment to the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council. Thank you. This is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment in regards to 42595 Walnut Street. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Ms. Wilson, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting, please?
Mayor Sloan, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 120 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on January the 28th, 2023. Notice was posted to the property, notice was posted to the municipal website, and notice was displayed in the weekly C-Buzz advertisements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Mr. McClure, our planner, is now going to present the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Kevin?
Thank you, Mayor Sloan. As you can see on the screen, this is a presentation for the public meeting for the draft zoning bylaw amendment for 42595 Walnut Street. The clicker to go. Sure. So go to the, I guess, oh. All right, so as can be seen on the screen, the limits of the subject lands are shown south of Walnut Street and west of Stone Church. So this application is in relation to a severance that was approved by the Elgin County Land Division Committee last year. It was appealed, and then a hearing was held in the summer last year, with the decision coming forward in November of last year as well. To fulfill the conditions of the severance, the lands are required to be rezoned. So as can be seen on the screen, just this kind of gives you an understanding of what the severance that was granted and upheld by the tribunal was approved on site, with the specifics of the zoning amendments, or I guess the zoning amendment and how it's going to be applied to the lands. So ultimately, the OS2 zone, that site specific OS2-85 zone that applies to the entire lands, is going to be adjusted to respect the limits of the retained lands. And then the severed lands are subject to the new zoning bylaw amendment that I guess the new zone that's being applied for as well. So part one of the amendment essentially is repealing and replacing map part B, so 8BM, which was part of that previous zoning bylaw amendment. So nothing is being changed with respect to uses that are permitted on the retained lands. It's essentially just reflecting the new limits of the lot. And then part two of the amendment introduces Schedule B to this bylaw, which is map part 8BO. And then 3 then designates the lands and the area identified on Schedule B as R1-89. So this is the Schedule A that readjusts the limits of the designation or zone for OS2-85 that was approved previously, again, for the retained lands. And then the R1-89 zoning and designating the severed lands that have been approved through the Land Division Committee and then the Ontario Land Tribunal. So then part 4 of the amendment introduces a new subsection to the residential section of the Yarmouth bylaw, being 9.2.2.89, defines that area on that map part as R1-89. And there's a specific exception being requested for lot frontage of 18 meters. That's the only change that's being requested through the amendment, due to the existing frontage of the property in that area. So that's the exception that they're requesting. All the regular provisions of the R1 zone would still apply. And then part 5 of the amendment introduces Schedule C to the bylaw, being a consolidated version of map part 8 that includes all the amendments that have occurred to date, including this one, which can be seen on the screen. Thank you.
Mr. McClure, thank you very much. Now ask the Deputy Clerk, have you received any written submissions on the proposal, please?
Mayor Sloan, no correspondence has been received.
Do we have any questions from the gallery, or Ms. Cardoso, do we have anyone attending via Zoom or on the telephone that wishes to speak, please?
Mayor Sloan, we do have one. I will admit them.
Thank you.
Please state your full name and address for the record.
Kyle W. Cronk, and my address is, my business address is Elmer, Ontario, representing Mr. Nelson Somerville today on his behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Kronk. If you'd like to proceed.
I don't see any way to split my screen here to do a presentation. Unfortunately, I'm not in ideal conditions. My plane was canceled and I'm stuck in Mexico. So I wanted to be there in person, but this isn't working out quite the way I wanted it to. I do have a presentation here, fortunately, on my laptop, and I'd like to share that with council. I did send that document and access to Miss Wilson today, and I don't know if that has been distributed to council or not.
Ms. Wilson, please.
Mayor Sloan, through you and to the rest of council and to Mr. Kronk, I did receive something and I did not have the ability to open or view the document. It was password protected and I could not open it. I conveyed that back to Mr. Kronk if he could provide it in an alternate format, and I did not receive an alternate format to date.
Mr. Kronk, please.
I sent that through Dropbox, unpassword protected, with full access. I opened it myself in the same email, and it did open. And Mr. Perrin and Mr. McClure have previously opened that document in that drop folder.
Mr. Kronk, if we may, or do you think we would be able to go forward with your presentation?
It would be a very Mickey Mouse presentation without documentation, and to be able to view the documents that are within that presentation.
So, Mr. Kronk, you don't wish to present, is that correct?
I do wish to present.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I know you're in Mexico. It's obviously a technical issue. Is there anyone else that's planning on presenting on this? I'm just going to ask the deputy clerk a question. Hold please for a moment, Mr. Kronk. So, Mr. Kronk, this is, as you know, one of my a newer role, and we're looking at, since we don't have the actual presentation, is there anything you'd like to give us in way of a presentation before I ask any members of council if they have any questions, please?
Is a possibility for me to share my screen on this Zoom program? I do Zoom all the time, and I share my screen on Zoom, and you would then have my presentation on your screens. The system that I have in front of me has no options for me to share my screen, so I'm not sure if this has been a cut down version of Zoom in Webinar, or if there is access for me to share my screen and do a proper presentation.
We're trying to facilitate that now. Thank you, Mr. Perrin. Mr. Cronk, apparently the screen is available now for a split screen if you'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Now I'll just have to figure this out here for 1 second. There's no video of me, that's fine. Okay, here we go. I'm probably going to get cut out of this, but I'm going to try and share my screen with you. It's not allowing me to share a screen for some reason. Oh, hang on. Maybe. Okay, I could buy it.
Mr. Cronk, I'm told if you can't share, you have to verbally present. So here we go. We've seen something.
Did you see something?
We did,
it's not-
sir.
Okay, hang on. Sorry about this. I apologize profusely, but it's not working very well. Okay, I'll just present the best I can.
Thank
So
you.
you can't see my screen, I understand, right? And
We-
no documents.
We can see the screen, Mr. Cronk.
Okay, you can see the screen for right now?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So this is the Elgin County official plan. I'm just going to scroll back up. That's the Elgin County official plan. Elgin County, the official plan is to move development to serviced areas. And we're basically talking about this particular lot on Stone Church Road. And as a part of the B 2.5 in the tiered section of Union is a tier 2 section. Again, to encourage intensification in settlement areas that are fully serviced. And I'll skip through this as quickly as I can because I know you're on a timeline. Development, so tier 2 allows for development on partial services is permitted to allow for infilling and rounding out of existing development. So that's exactly what is happening here. Unfortunately, there are no services, so it can't be partial services. Again, Union 1 is a tier 2 area. And we're going to talk more about water and ground surface water. And we're going to talk a little bit more and in the local official plan, your local official plan. So this also, the Elgin County official plan also refers to following the local official plan, which is Central Algonquin's local plan. Under no circumstances shall consents be granted for approval that are contrary to policies of this plan or the local plan. So no amendments would be granted if they contravene the plan. And this section, again, still under the Elgin County official plan, section D, has adequate size and frontage. Extremely important here that the words and frontage in accordance with the local municipality zoning bylaw will not have negative impact on the quality of groundwater. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, and will conform with the local official plan. Okay, so that's the Elgin County official plan. You got to bear with me because I had this stuff on my laptop, so it's a little bit more unprofessional than I would like to see it. So this is the, Mr. McClure spoke about this, the zoning bylaw amendment to place it into an R1. And we're going to show you why we don't believe this should be done. Mr. McClure's went through all that information. So here, the St. Thomas plan, Mr. McClure says that zoning amendment will resolve the deficiency lot area, but it cannot satisfy the frontage deficiency. So when we talked at the hearing, he talks about the areas being big enough, but this lot is only 18 meters wide. And by your bylaws, it requires 100 feet. So this is 41 feet short, almost half of what's required by your bylaw. This was the report from, again, from that was presented to the Land Division Committee, and on partial services, tier 1 areas and on partial services. So this is the tier 2, and it's limited development is permitted in these areas given the absence of full services. Development on partial services is permitted for infilling. Again, we have no services for this lot, so it violates the bylaw and should not be allowed. And it should be noted that it should be appropriately sized and in accordance with the local bylaws, planning and addressing minimum lot areas. And then and this is where the planning staff says it's okay. However, it doesn't meet the bylaws. One member of the Land Division caught this error and he questioned the planner. And I would be happy to show you that video at some point in time. You can look it up yourself. And that member of the Land Division Committee was misinformed by the planner, and it was not discussed at full length at that meeting at the Land Division Committee, and it was misleading to that committee. So this is Central Elgin's official plan. It says in your official plan that the development has to conform to the policies. And therefore, if we get down to the policies, again, partial services must exist. And we know there are no services. There are going to be no future services and probably never be serviced for that particular lot. All urban settlements shall be fully serviced, and it carries on. This is a rural settlement. We know that Union is a tier 2 and is an urban settlement, not a rural settlement. We know Union realistically will not have services for a long time, and this area will probably never be serviced. And then we get into the partial services of the Central Elgin official plan. Limited infilling may be permitted on partial services. We have no services here. This is Central Elgin's official plan. So for this lot to be approved, it has to have an official plan amendment. It would be my position on this particular event. And it has to have the right size lot, and no studies have been done on this lot to even indicate whether sewer, the building envelope is even possible on this narrow lot. It's only 18 meters wide. And how is this going to affect Mr. Somerville's water? No studies have been done on the water, the hydraulics of this. Minimum area, again, we don't have any site plans, septic studies, local or geotech reports, anything to satisfy this bylaw amendment. We're going to talk a little bit about soil in a few minutes. Again, there's no studies done, but that's not the worst part. The applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Malloy, have for some reason dumped 200 loads of soil on this lot after the application was submitted. The dumping of the soil is well known to Central Elgin staff because I brought it up at the Ontario Land Tribunal. So your staff knows that this lot has 200 loads of soil on it, and that violates the Property Standards Act of Central Elgin. The level of the soil has been lifted up at least 4 feet above Mr. Somerville's garage. So we know that this application does not satisfy section 5 of the official plan and other areas. And that part is easily looked at by your staff. So we know this application does not comply with the zoning bylaw. So I'm going to again try and save some time here. The lot width is almost half of what is required under the bylaw. We need 100 feet according to your bylaw, and this lot has 59 feet. So that's almost half. Again, no studies have been done. It says here that we need to have some studies, a hydrogeological study to confirm the adequacy of the soil conditions. And now that they've put on 200 loads of soil on top of this lot, we have some real major concerns now. For flooding, how's this going to affect the water level? How's it going to affect Mr. Somerville's septic system? And so on and so forth. And does Mr. Somerville want his well filled with urine from a septic bed beside him? I'm going to just kind of move on here. So in your site plan approval application forms of the official plan, an official plan amendment may be required also. And I would suggest that's exactly what this needs in order to satisfy, and that a simple bylaw amendment does not do the task here. Let's go right straight to the bylaw. Residential R1, where public sanitation, sewer, disposal facilities, and pipe public water systems are not available. And here's the meat of the whole thing here. No services are at this. It requires 1858 square meters, and it has that. I agree with that. But it also, where subsection 9.2.1.3.1 applies, you need a frontage of 100 feet. And this has 59 feet. So this lot, it requires 100 feet. It's got 59. Mr. McClure will tell you has enough square footage because of the depth. However, the bylaw is the bylaw. Mr. Somerville made an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal and lost. We lost at that hearing. It appears it has been attached to your report. So I think it's in your report. Take that with a grain of salt. Mr. Somerville is not going to spend $15,000 on a planner to argue against Mr. McClure's plan report and him. So that's not even a fair statement that what Mr. McClure was saying. I feel in my heart that this bylaw is not satisfied as attached. I will even back this up with the words of Lloyd Perrin at the hearing. Bylaws are the law. This application requires 100 feet of frontage and it has 59 feet of frontage. It has no services. It has approximately 200 loads of new soil, which has raised it 4 feet above Mr. Somerville's garage. I want to show you a couple pictures.
Mr. Cronk, can I interrupt for a moment?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr.
Sorry,
Cronk,
just 1 second, Councillor Moplin. Just a quick note, Mr. Cronk, that we have a full gallery here tonight in a full meeting. So Councillor Halpin is going to speak, but time is a bit of a concern. Councillor Halpin, please.
thank you. I will ask questions at the end of your presentation, Mr. Cronk, but for now, I would like to remind you that procedurally, you are to stay to the topic itself. And if you have a bylaw concern to raise with bylaw, that is something separate to the actual zoning. So I'd like for us to stay with the actual facts here and not with the 200 loads of dirt.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin. Mr. Cronk, please.
Well, here's the loads of dirt. And this picture sideways, unfortunately. Here's the first loads of dirt that came as soon as Mr. Somerville applied for the
Point
appeal.
of order, Mr. Cronk. That is a bylaw concern and it's valid if you would like to raise it with bylaw, but I would like you to talk about the official plan if you'd like to talk with us about what we need to understand about this planning issue.
I'm just going to ask Mr. Cronk if any of the other council members have any questions. Mr. Watson or Counselor Watson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Kronk, would Mr. Somerville be happy if the lot went in, but the ground got leveled back off to the same height as his land right now? So there'd be no threat of flooding his septic bed?
Well, I think this is way above that. And as you can see in the picture on the left here, the amount of soil that's been dumped there, whether this is a bylaw issue or not a bylaw issue, this is the lot. The lot is the lot. And Mr. Malloy has raised it 4 feet. And it's above his neighbor's property line. It's 4 feet above his garage. This should be a great concern to Central Elgin.
Thanks, Mr. Kronk. Counselor Watson, followed by Mr. Perrin. Did you have a comment, sir? Thank you. Mr. Perrin, please.
Maybe if I can just provide some context for council so they maybe understand where we're at this point. The actual lot has been created. It was appealed by Mr. Somerville to Ontario Land Tribunal. The Ontario Land Tribunal upheld the decision of the Elgin County Land Division Committee to create the lot. And that lot is now, or that is conditional on having rezoning. When staff looked at the proposed severance, staff looked at whether it's in keeping with the neighborhood. So Mr. Somerville's lot immediately to the north, who Mr. Kronk is representing, that frontage of that lot is 18.11 meters in frontage, and that was conveyed by Mr. Somerville under testimony at the Ontario Land Tribunal. And when you go to the lot immediately north of Mr. Somerville's, that lot as well is less than the 100-foot frontage. So when this severance came forward, staff looked at it, it met the minimum lot frontage, or sorry, the minimum lot area. The lot frontage is deficient under the Yarmouth zoning bylaw, and my friend, Mr. McClure, can hop in here if I get off track. However, the lot area is sufficient in size to support a home, a well, and a septic system. And we know that's the case because Mr. Somerville's lot supports those same types of infrastructure, a home and a detached garage. With respect to the concern about fill and flooding out property, if you go to this site, there's a significant grade from Stone Church Road westerly to the pond that's on the Malloy property, surface grade. Staff will acknowledge that there has been fill dumped on the lot from construction work that's been undertaken elsewhere on the property. However, at the time of building permit, when a building permit is applied for, there is a requirement in the municipality of Central Elgin to undertake a lot grading plan that will show the location of all services, the topography of the existing grade, any buildings and structures, and how that lot will be graded after the fact as a result of the development to ensure that there's no adverse impact on adjacent lands, as well as ponding problems on the lot. So for council's consideration.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Perrin. Mr. Kronk?
The only thing I can add to this is that Mr. Somerville's house and his garage is built on the property line. So it's going to make it very difficult for side setback and construction. And that's of no fault of Mr. Somerville's. This house is probably 60 years old or more, and that garage was built right on the property line. How that happened, we don't know. But it did happen. And now you have all this soil on this application. It doesn't meet the requirements of 18 meters. Mr. Somerville's property and house barely fit on the 18 meters. And this should be of concern to Central Elgin, that at some point there's going to be some liability if Mr. Somerville receives some types of damages. Who those liabilities go to, I don't know, but Central Elgin should be very concerned about that.
Thank you, Mr. Kronk. I'm going to go to I'm going to go to Councillor Halpin and then Mr. Kronk. I think we're going to move along. Councillor Halpin, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sloan. So Mr. Perrin brought up something that I had noticed in the OLT file when I read through it, and that was that we're talking about a proposed 18.11 meter property beside an 18.3 meter property, both of which have been calculated to have enough space for services. And we're talking about a neighbor who does not want someone to have an undersized lot or potentially build on a property line, because he also has an undersized lot and is built on the property line. And it would be argued that Mr. Somerville's property does not fit our official plan in any way, and yet he would expect that we cannot make an exception for anyone else's property. How would you respond to that?
Well, the bylaws were put in place probably after Mr. Somerville's house was built, and those bylaws are put in place to protect people like Mr. Somerville. So that's why we put bylaws in place. That's why we have the 100 feet frontage, so that we don't damage other people's properties. So if we say, oh, Mr. Somerville's has 18 meters, we should have 18 meters, but that there's a reason for those amendments and changes to the bylaws and the implementation of the bylaws. So if we violate what we've put in place, the 100 feet, just because Mr. Somerville 60 or 70 years ago, it was violated or didn't even exist at that time. Those bylaws were put in place for a specific reason, and that's to protect people, the people that are going to build on this lot, and Mr. Somerville. So, and probably the cemetery beside it, because if he raises this lot up, and like he has done, there's going to be flooding on both sides, probably.
Thank you, Mr. Cronk. I'm going to just quickly go here to Mr. McClure, please.
Thank you, Mayor Sloan. I just want to put forth the clarification that the general regulations that we're going through this process to amend, those are general regulations. They apply the same across the entire municipality. But as we're going through this, again, we've seen this document in the past. It's been all the policies and everything have been looked at and reviewed through the severance. I guess argued at the tribunal, reviewed it through this amendment process as well. The Planning Act allows for a process to amend bylaws, which this is what they're doing through this application. Ultimately, the request is to have the reduction to the 18 meters, similar to other bylaws that we've heard today, where they're asking for reductions or variances or changes to what's the general rule. Ultimately, what staff has come to conclusion with throughout the process is that given all of the policy direction that is that we need to take into account for review through this process, the 18 meters, we're satisfied that the 18 meters is sufficient to address access frontage onto the property. There were no concerns with respect to the ability to service the property because the minimum lot area exceeds the minimum requirements as defined in the bylaw. But that's what we're allowed to do through the Planning Act process, is to go through a process to look at things on a case-by-case basis, which staff were satisfied with. Not only municipal staff at the OLT, which was, I guess, the information that Mr. Cronk has presented today was raised at that tribunal and ultimately in the board order favored inside of staff, but also the evidence or witnesses that Mr. Cronk summons, being Mr. Perrin and Mr. McComb, who's the manager of planning at the City of St. Thomas in the Central Elgin Planning Office. All three undisputed were in support of the application. So again, I think it's been litigated before the tribunal previously. We're going through the process right now to deal with the zoning, which within the order itself of the tribunal recommends that the appeal was dismissed and the conditions imposed by the provisional consent by the Land Division Committee of the County of Elgin dated March 23rd remain in effect. So by the order of the board, they are satisfied that the severance be approved. And this is simply a fulfillment of a condition as approved by the tribunal.
Thank you, Mr. Cronk. We're considering this, as you know, that any amendment to this bylaw is going to be considered at a future meeting of council. But currently we have a full gallery and a full, lots happened in your week away here. And I'd ask for your consideration that we could move forward at this time. Mr. Cronk?
Yeah, the only thing, one last comment, Your Worship, is that what Mr. McClure was just saying, the tribunal is the tribunal. This is a bylaw amendment. And it is our position that 18 meters does not protect both sides of this property. It shouldn't, this particular bylaw amendment should not go through. That's our position, and thank you very much for letting me present.
Thank you, Mr. Kronk. Safe travels. Everyone has been given fair opportunity to be heard. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw on the proposed amendment should email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralelgin.org or call 631-4860 extension 286. This public meeting is now concluded. Any amendment to the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council.